Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you're on Facebook Live, welcome to Mike.com. We have a very exciting panel for you today. Before we launch into the details, I'm going to introduce our guests. We have Dr. Omekongo Dibinga, who is a Congolese-American activist. He's a motivational speaker, a trilingual poet, a talk show host, a rapper, a professor of cross-cultural communication at American University, and generally somebody who makes you feel like you have an inferiority complex. Then we have J.D. Stier. He is a producer of the film that we're going to be discussing. He's also an activist. He's a campaign director with over 15 years of experience, and he's worked both with the Obama administration and on the 2008 campaign. And last, but certainly not least, we have a little-known actress by the name of Wright. You might have heard of her. An award-winning activist, actor, director. She's been dedicated to the issue of promoting peace building in the Congo and women's rights in Eastern Congo. Hello, that's my best friend, Robin. She is both the executive producer of this film and the narrator. Before we begin, I'd just like to clear the air. There's been a lot of excitement in this office today, and it's not every day that the entire Mike staff shows up. And I think we all know it's because I'm a pretty big deal in the moderating community. And I just don't want you to be nervous or starstruck. We're just a bunch of friends here having a relaxed conversation.
I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out.
I'm going to get fired. So, yeah, we're here to discuss this brilliant film. It's a documentary I saw last night. I had the pleasure of seeing last night, called When Elephants Fight. And essentially it's about, well, it's about the Democratic Republic of Congo, but revolves around something known in the development community as a resource curse, where the world's most vulnerable countries that are very resource rich and should essentially be prospering and lifted out of poverty end up suffering the most and are gripped by political and economic instability because they become the subject of exploitation by the West, by hegemonic powers, by big corporations. So it's about this centuries-long war and story of exploitation in the Congo and how the Congolese have suffered. Very, very moving film. Just to give it a little bit of context, it's estimated there's $24 trillion worth of minerals sitting in the Congo right now. It's one of the sort of ironic tragedies is that it's been resource rich. The resources have corresponded with various technology booms over the last few centuries. So even dating back to the late 19th century with King Leopold, when it was a Belgian colony, there was a lot of rubber. And this was around the time when inflatable bicycle tires had just emerged. So Congo was very useful for that reason. And now even today, it houses a lot of the metals that we find in our phones and our tablets. So this is just really the ironic tragedy, that it's just been so rich with resources that have been useful to us over the course of many centuries. So one of the great things about last night is I got to see all of you speak. One of the things I was struck by, Robin, is how deeply personal this issue seems to be for you. And it was very moving when you spoke about your time there and your visit traveling throughout the Congo. I want to know what kind of impact that had on you and how that's inspired you to be so involved.
Just to condense, because it's a twofold answer. 11 years ago, when I learned of this crisis, I was stunned that I was so uneducated and that most around me were uneducated, that this device that I had in my hand, I was on the phone with my daughter telling her good night. And John Pendergrass from the Enough Project was like, do you have any idea what's housed in your phone? No. 15 minutes later, my mouth was at my knees, and I just said, it's unacceptable that I am using this convenience tool on a daily basis. All of us are. And we have a personal responsibility to do something about it. And I just got on this campaign trail with him to spread the word, to amplify the voice, because the Congolese, when I went with JD 6 years ago, you know, you're there and like we all do with charitable causes, and you're so impassioned, and what can I do, and how can I give, and how can I tell this person to give? And all they said was, can you be my voice? I don't have a voice in my own country. No one hears us. And these women that I met in these civil society groups, you know, raped multiple times. They've had 6 to 8 surgeries where they can't stand up sometimes for, you know, a year to 18 months. They've been so brutally raped. And I just thought, this is the deadliest conflict in the world. And we are basically fueling this war by being consumers. We have a duty to speak out and spread the word. And I have a sleepwear line now because the voice wasn't amplified loud enough. We went to Congress. We spoke in front of Congress numerous times. It's a movement, and it was going so slowly. And I said, how can I help get more reach? So I've got a pajama line going that basically represents and, you know, symbolizes comfort and security. And we just now produced our first pair out of the Congo, putting work into the women's hands. Yeah.
Pour the femme.
Pour the femme.
Check it out.
Anyway, so, you know, it's twofold, but
It's my birthday coming up in 9 months, and I'd like some pajamas for everybody who's taking notes.
those you will have.
So, JD, I think, so this film, first I want to touch on the campaign, actually, before we launch more into the film. This film has an associated campaign, Stand With Congo. If you are watching this on Facebook Live, please use the hashtag #StandWithCongo. Go to standwithcongo.org, find out more about it, and download the new app, which just was released yesterday. Can you tell us more about this campaign and how people can get involved?
Yeah, we've been frustrated. We've hit our heads against walls. You know, the years of activism in this space. For every success, there's setbacks, and the good news that we're here today with is political conditions have changed. There's 2 different factors today that give us a lot of hope. And this campaign is the new campaign that we're launching is the synthesis of years of activism. The 2 conditions that have changed is, one, there are some powerful new stakeholders involved engaged in Congo peace. The U.S., largely U.S. tech sector. Intel, the world's largest chip manufacturer, and Apple, the world's largest company, largest tech company, are involved in Congo peace. They've mapped their supply chains. They've acknowledged the link through the minerals in their products. Brian Kersanich, the Intel CEO, has spoken up publicly about it and spoken out to the industry at the Consumer Electronics Show in January 2014, acknowledging this issue. So we have some powerful new stakeholders. That changes the calculus on the ground in Congo. Fidel Bakulemba, a good friend of ours who's central in the film, said to us a little while back that armed commanders that he's been working with and negotiating peace with over the years are starting to change their tone and say, well, you know what, I could be a contractor for a defense company if mining companies want to come do business ethically. So there's a real change in culture given the big tech companies getting involved. The other dynamic that wasn't at play when we started out our activism is a growing consciousness here in the United States around making the link between corporate excess and political corruption. Starting with the Occupy movement, what's fueling Bernie's campaign, there's a new high level of consciousness around making those connections, and it's what the Congolese have been talking about for years. They're sick of the same small political corporate elite exploiting all of Congo's resources, siphoning billions of dollars into secret offshore accounts, while the Congolese people remain ranked dead last in GDP indexes. And so this campaign puts, with the film as its central organizing tool, shines a very bright light on this corruption, specifically naming and shaming the individuals responsible, and delivers the force of the social movement at the mining companies, the Congolese president asking the U.S. government to engage on shutting down business as usual and starting to do business where Congo's resource wealth stays with the people.
So I think there are critics, or rather, I know there are certainly critics in the activist community who would argue that campaigns like this are motivated by something known as the white savior complex. And they would contend that it's not the business of the West to interfere and meddle in the issues of developing countries, and in fact it ultimately disempowers local communities. What would you say to those critics? How is this campaign different, and why doesn't it fall into this category?
We have a lot of humility about who we are in this space as international citizens. We have a lot of humility knowing that we're never going to understand the Congo conflict as anybody born growing up and living in this conflict will. And so with that humility, we travel, we listen, but we really look to Omekongo and other civil society leaders to be the true leaders, to talk about the needs and the next steps for peace. And what folks have looked us in the eyes and said on our travels is, you know, you do have access to a platform. You have access to technology. We have the ability to produce quality film and to plan a global campaign and to bring global media attention to that campaign. And so we own our role. We know what our space is, but it's to tell an authentic story. Congolese voices and a Congolese narrative steers the film. And Congolese civil society steers what it is we're asking for. And so as long as, the key word in the campaign is with. Stand with Congo. We've come in solidarity, but we've also come with extreme humility about the role that we can play. We're not making decisions. We don't look at ourselves as leaders in any way. We're humble servants, but we're going to bring everything we can to bear through our technology and our platform and our ability in the arts and in campaigning to amplify that voice that's very clear from Congolese civil society on the ground.
And we're not taking money. It's a campaign that is furnished basically for just the awareness. Just click on this, you can sign the petition, just get engaged, be a participant in spreading the awareness. And then if you want to make a donation to civil society groups, you can actually be directed to that. Am I right?
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Totally, you paid me to say that.
You scroll down standwithcongo.org and it says hashtag don't give us your money. Like us, join us, and instead give direct support to Congolese civil society. Robin and I can do the fundraising to staff up and run these campaigns privately. And so we want anybody engaging the campaign, don't give us your money instead, and join us in directly supporting folks who are saving lives on the ground and protecting the amazing wildlife. Virunga, the Kuuzi-Biega, some of the world's last gorilla populations. We're supporting environmental protection, labor and mining rights protections, human rights at large. That's where we want the money and the resources and the attention to go while we fight the political fight.
And on that note, again, if you're just tuning in on Facebook Live, please use the hashtag, tweet about it, post about it, hashtag #StandWithCongo, and see how you can get involved with this campaign, see how you can learn more about this issue. My next question is for you, Omekongo. There was a line in the film that struck a chord with me. One of the interview subjects is Jason Stier. He's the director of the Congo Research Group. And he said, quote, "One of the overriding emotions that characterizes this whole conflict is humiliation for the Congolese people." And I'm curious to know if you think that accurately describes the conflict. And I know you spoke last night about how your family has personally suffered from the exploitation of the Congo in very, very serious ways.
Imagine a land in a place you never heard of, where children grow to soldiers, women raped and murdered. Men watch their children die. They ask why. Do they gotta cry for so long? Tears gone, eyes dry. Now imagine that your cell phones causes death and demise. Your PlayStation slayed a nation, Xbox X'd out lives. Your laptop, the backdrop for death so it can function. Your desktop, a weapon of mass destruction. You ain't got to imagine, dude, it's all true. Your TV won't tell you because it's guilty too. Of violence in the Congo, they die so we can live, but you can change it all. And you ain't got to leave your crib. Turn yourself onto a microphone and speak up. Tell mining companies to back up. You can save 1 million lives and help stop the violence if you can be brave enough to just end the silence. It's silence that destroys me. It's silence that bothers me, that Jason was talking about in the film. When I sit and walk into a room everywhere I go and see us wearing genocide and purchasing genocide as it relates to the jewelry that we wear, as it relates to the computers and everything that we use, but then there's silence, it's further humiliation, because Oprah called this war the worst place to be a woman. This is the most violent conflict that we've had across the globe since World War II, and we walk into these places and people don't even know about it. I'm walking into a room and I'm saying, do people even know that our silence has led to me losing relatives? You know, I lost a 22-year-old cousin who died the same day I met him of a common cold walking in Congo, who can't get access to medicine. I've lost family members to AIDS who can't get help. I've worked in refugee camps where I've seen people who look just like my mother, who's been a refugee at least 3 times in her life, die. And I feel a sense of shame of my own because I'm living in a society where people don't even know that we're fueling this conflict. And of course, we have Congolese on the ground who are also implicated in what's going on as well, but this is a global issue. And every single day when I think about another family member I may not meet because of our not only ignorance but arrogance when some of us are even discussing this issue or it's brought up to our attention, it makes me write more. And that's why I do my hip-hop work, why I do my spoken word work, to bring more people into the fray, because it's just depressing at the end of the day to sit here and watch my country, which has enough resources to feed the entire continent, and we're starving. And every single morning I wake up knowing that all of my friends here, all of my family here, we have an opportunity together to do something about it. And that's why I do this work. When you asked the question in the beginning about what do you say about people who say, why are you involved in the savior complex, I'm reminded of the Aboriginal saying where it says, if you're coming because you want to help us, stay home. But if you're coming because you feel like our destiny is inextricably linked, then let's work together. And that's what JD and Robin and the Stand Up Congo movement is all about. And I've been involved in fighting for Congolese liberation. It's been the family business. I've been doing this all of my life. And my grandfathers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers and grandfathers. And so we see people come and go all of the time. But this Stand Up Congo movement, it's doing something special as it relates to not making people feel guilty, but bringing people together so we can make real change and save real lives. And that's what would help end the humiliation of my people back home.
I think one thing I was surprised to discover is just how closely linked this exploitation of resources is to promoting the use of things like sexual violence against women as a weapon in civil war. And this is something that you've been particularly vocal about, Robin. Can you talk about this link and how people are responsible, how people can stop reinforcing that? Everybody in this room, what can they do?
I mean, just, to cap off what you stated, they are disowned by their family the minute they're raped. They're tainted. And that's their culture. That's their tradition. That's their belief system. So to not only be, dismantled community, husband abducted by the militia, child had to witness mom being raped, then mom is disowned by her mother. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I'm not a born activist like all you folk.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. I just want to continue encouraging people to make noise. It's the only thing that cleaned up the blood diamonds, and this is exactly the same. It's just cleaning up the trade, and it's putting security on the ground for these people. Because we're going to keep buying those. And we're not saying boycott. We're not saying boycott Intel or Apple. It's put pressure on them to clean it up. So we're not dirty.
Do you feel like the issue has finally reached critical mass and that it's come to a turning point? Or do you feel like there's still a long way to go?
I mean, on these trains, there's always so far to go, and we have come so far. We've been on this trail for 11 years. And to have the Dodd-Frank bill passed, I mean, that was monumental, which basically says we're putting a system as a law on the ground that's saying you have to pass a test saying certification, clean. And it's now what we're moving into how many companies. Intel is conflict-free, 100%. Apple's 90% conflict-free. Take the baton. What else do we have?
I mean, for us, as Omekongo said, thank you for that, it's about convening. We have a different brand of campaigning, a different brand of movement building than a lot of the actors you see out in that space. We don't see the world in black and white. We don't see the world in good guys and bad guys, because that's just not real. We knew with blind faith that there were going to be plenty of human rights champions inside the hallways of the major tech companies. And we were right. Our faith in humanity was validated. And it came in the form of CEOs at some of those companies personally engaging. We have that same level of faith in the major mining companies doing business and in plenty of people in politics in the Congo. And all we've continued to ask for is for people to do the right thing. Positive messaging, painting a positive picture of the future. It's real, it's more connected to reality, and it's proving some results. And so I started out by saying there's new stakeholders in the movement. And so to your question, I think we're nearing a tipping point. Recently, the Panama Papers came out. Names the Congolese president, Joseph Kabila, and his family. Dan Gertler, a man who's mentioned in the film, a proxy facilitating some of the deals that connect Congolese President Joseph Kabila with the major mining companies, is named throughout the Panama Papers as well. And we think that we're nearing the end of business as usual for them. Global Witness, an NGO based in the UK, has been leading policy and research in this space. With some of the world's greatest journalists sitting right in front of us, we know that the bright light of transparency is coming down on this very small cast of characters. And so business as usual is on its way out. And I think we're at the cusp, and it really just takes leading work on your part today and people watching in on this to download the app. What does it take to download a free app, sign a petition, and share it with your network? Honestly, I'm asking you that. What does it take for you to do that? You know, if you do that, we're able to see this movement grow, and as this movement grows and the messages of a growing movement reach the media and reach the board members of these companies, we know our champions are there. They need to see your support. They need to see thousands and tens of thousands of people saying, we care about that. So it isn't just a celebrity and an activist and a rapper and a journalist. It's a movement, and it's people everywhere. So we've packaged it. We've made it accessible. We're nearing that tipping point. Let's not make it a 5-year campaign. Let's make this the shortest campaign in world history, and let's close up shop 6 months from now by downloading the app, joining in, talking about it, and having a quick conversation. Apple and Intel and tech have led the way. Mining is the next step. And to get into politics just for a second, the moment Congolese President Joseph Kabila doesn't have a blank check from the mining companies, he will no longer be able to act with immunity from donor nations, in particular the United States and the UN peace mission there. But when he has unlimited funding to remain in power, there's not a lot that the Congolese people can do. And so we're trying to chip away at that blank check, reform practices inside the mining industry in the way we've been a part of change in the tech industry, so that blank check disappears and things will start to rapidly change in Congo.
I mean, it is remarkable how far this movement has come in the last 10 years. The thing that boggles my mind is that since the early 90s, more than 5 million people have died in the DRC. This is being referred to as the second biggest tragedy since World War II, but yet nobody knows about it. You have a couple of hundred people die in Paris, and the media is ready to talk about it for weeks. And that's something obviously that deserves attention, but we're talking about millions of people. What do you think it is, Omekongo, that has made people so neglectful of this issue? And it's not as though we're not connected to it. I mean, everybody here has a phone in their pocket. We are directly connected to this issue.
I think there's a little bit of laziness that exists as it relates to our media culture. For example, one of the things I like to say is that the United States media can only handle one African conflict per decade. So, you know, in the 80s, it was Ethiopia. In the 90s, it was Rwanda. Last decade, it was Sudan. And now every African country is like fighting for attention before this decade's up. And, you know, Congo's like trying to get its way in there. But quite honestly, I think at the end of the day, well, number one, when you talk about media, we're talking about electronics, and we're talking about an interest there. And so people don't want, as I said in the rap, the TV won't tell you because it's guilty too. So people aren't going to come out there and share stories about something that they might be implicated in. Number two, it's very easy to paint anything that's taking place in the African continent. Yes, continent.
It's not just a country?
Yeah, I had to put that out there. Some people aren't aware of this. It's very easy to put it as that's what they're doing over there. These are uncivilized individuals who are at war with each other. It's a very easy narrative to paint because if you look at our history books, if you look at our classrooms, unless you have a direct interest in what's taking place on the continent, that's an easy narrative to go by. And then lastly, at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, do we really care? I mean, in this day and age where we have about 800 channels on TV, even though nothing may be on at the same time, we can easily change the channel when we hear something that's horrific and just say, well, I want to go back to my favorite TV show. I want to go back to this. I want to go back to that. So we've created a society where it's almost cool to not know. Where it's almost, we pride ourselves on not being in the know because we just feel like there's so much going on that we shouldn't care. And at the end of the day, one of the things that J.D. said in his very first comments, within like a minute of speaking, was he talked about us being global citizens. And it's not just an American thing. This is a worldwide issue. This is a global problem. And it's going to take organizations like Mike to help literally change the narrative, because our general corporate media structure that we have, it's already caught up in whatever it is that it's going to talk about. It's not going to work to change the narrative. So we need new networks, new organizations, and new people who are dedicated to making change like you to get out there in front of these things. And once people see, it's like Oprah said, once you know, you have to act. And we thoroughly believe that once we get more people in the know, we will get more people to act. We have so many colleges and universities that have passed conflict-free initiatives, and governments that have been raising awareness about it, and other celebrities and other activists who have become engaged. But it simply comes from not knowing. And once we get more people to know, we know that they will act. And so that's why we do this every day.
If you are just joining us on Facebook Live, we are discussing a very powerful documentary, When Elephants Fight, about the exploitation of resources in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Please use the hashtag #StandWithCongo if you are watching right now. Spread the word. Robin, I'm interested to know if and how this has changed your life. How do you do things differently? How do the people in your world do things differently since you got involved with the DRC and your humanitarian work?
You know, it resonated so quickly when I went to Congo and met these women, and this is not being a feminist in the negative connotation of that word. I just was sitting there going, this could have been my mother, sister, friend, aunt, your mom, and I just went, wow, we're really all connected. And the fact that women, and I was just reading something the other day about historically, there's not proven or stated any matriarchal society. Never. Never in the history. The only matriarchal society that they could attest to was Shakespearean plays, where in the 1600s, it was the first time women played women. Men were playing women before that. And I'm like, that's the tenet? That's all we have? And that we are used as tools. And what's amazing is to hear these child soldiers, these militia, who, yes, they're knocked up on drugs and they have an AK-47 in their hand. Why do you rape the women? Right? The way we glorify women, and women are Mother Earth and blah, blah, blah. Well, but you're abusing them, and you're using them as a weapon of war. And he was interviewed, and he said, because the woman's power. She is power, and if I rape her, I get the power. And a lot of incidents that happen is they would be raped, 4 and 5 men in a row, and then the last guy who wanted all the power would rape her with his machine gun, to the point where they have this condition called fistula. It's horrific how they have to rebuild their insides. But he wanted to destroy her ability to give any more power to the next man. So he takes that and continues on to the next village. And we're tools in that way, and yet we are such powerful beings, right? You guys wouldn't be here without women, and you're like... I think it's a paradigm shift, and I know everybody's talking about it's the forefront of current affairs, it's gender inequality, but we're talking about the root of it right here, the root of it. And it's connected to minerals that are in our phones. We can do that paradigm shift by just talking.
If there is one thing that each of you want to have this audience walk away with, virtual and physical, what is it? Starting with you, Omekongo.
I just want everybody in this room to realize that Congolese people are people too. African lives are important. African lives matter. We shouldn't just be thrown away and disregarded and stereotyped whenever we hear a conflict going on. And also, the most important thing also that I want for you all in this room is, with everything that we're talking about, some of this might be new for you, and some of y'all may have known about this for a while, but I want you to leave this session optimistic, because however many of you are in here, it's new family that we can work together. We can make this change. We can see this change in our lifetime. And so we get up every day excited because we're seeing change on the ground. And if you walk out of here with that hope can be multiplied to many thousands more people. And that's where we're going to really start changing what people think about the Congo. And that hope is going to make you become even more active in the news as you report it, the information that you put out as it relates to these conflict minerals. And it's been done before as it relates to changing the world and changing a narrative, and we can do it again right now. So don't leave here feeling hopeless. Leave here feeling hopeful so we can make a true change in the Congo. That's what I want to happen.
I was born into this country. And, growing up, I, by chance, lived with a Sudanese refugee, one of the lost boys, who at the age of 6 had to flee his family, flee his home. And we happened to get housed together at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And that's my introduction to Africa. I knew nothing of the continent. I did know it was a continent, but I knew nothing of the continent beyond that. And I couldn't have named all the countries on the map, and now I got T-shirts with the countries on the map. And yet, from that first trip 15 years ago, for many years, I felt powerless. I felt impotent as an American, as a white man. What's my space? What's my role? And I actually was intimidated by the white savior narrative to think,
I know, right?
I don't want to do the wrong thing. And so I was even paralyzed, in addition to exploring and experimenting with some of those next steps. And so my main message, and why we want to come to the mic of all places, the up-and-coming dominant force in media, is to deliver the message that I can stand before you today with my good friends Omekongo and Robin and say, we have found a path with tremendous support from Congolese civil society, the White House, the Special Envoy, all the major leading NGOs in this space, from Global Witness to the Enough Project, Jewish World Watch, and others, to say there is unanimous consent behind this campaign, behind this approach. All the serious thinkers in this space, most importantly, civil society leaders in conflict zones in Congo, have empowered us to come and deliver the message. This is a way forward. This is a next step where people like us and people at home watching online can take this step and finally deliver some of the political capital and pressure necessary to shut down the guys who have been running this conflict for 20 years. Now is the time. Downloading the app is, as far as a response to sexual violence and conflict, I wouldn't want to come back and say, download an app. But now that we've had a conversation, we've explained what it's all about, I do want to say, download the app, take the time to sign a petition, and share with people that you've engaged with a campaign team that has found a step forward. Have a little confidence of that. Have a little swagger in that. This is a step forward, and we believe in it, and you can believe in it too.
How about you, Robin?
I mean, just to bookend those 2 points, which I think encompasses what I'm thinking, is just silence is apathy. And we don't want to be apathetic. And yes, there's so many causes we could be engaged with and support, but the silence and what that creates here in the Congo with this connection, how we are intrinsically connected to this problem, I would just say tap into that compassion, because we can all be compassionate, and then we go, God, I'm tired, I really want to watch Mad Men and, do our thing.
House of Cards.
Actually, yeah, House
of Cards.
I really recommend it.
I call it House of Schnards. I think don't let the silence win. Let the compassion win. Let it become that proactive bug that, and it's so easy what he created. That's why to build this for so many years, and there was so much silence, and we were up against closed doors, and people just going, oh, yeah, tell me about another crisis, right? And he was like, come on, we have to do something that makes it so easy to spread the word. And that's all we're asking. And that word is your compassionate heart, and I think we all have that in us. It's just how do we operate it?
We raised the funds. We're not asking for money. We said, hashtag, don't give us your money. We're doing a 50 campus tour. So anyone watching at home, if you're going back to your campus in the fall, hit up standwithcongo.org or the app and click request a free screening. We've got campaign staff standing by, giving you your movie posters, giving you your toolkits, giving you a link to the free film to download for your campus. Let's get this film out everywhere in the fall. We've been showing it. We launched with Congolese diaspora in the Boston area. We're planning screenings inside the Congo. We're ready to go. Let's download, let's click, and help us bring this film, this campaign, and these actions forward.
And I really strongly recommend you get your hands on this film or go see it as soon as you can. It's very powerful, very moving, very fraught, and I think something that everybody needs to see. The final note, and I feel like I've done a really good job of cultivating our friendship since you've arrived, and I want to undo it by mentioning House of Cards. And just so you know, I am under duress. I have been threatened by people at Mike for not, they said I had to ask it.
That sounds House of Cardsian.
It was in a public bathroom at night. It was
avoid the DC Metro. Just don't stand near the end of the tracks.
And also, they look very nice and civilized now, but once you leave, it's going to get ugly. So before we open up to the floor to questions, two very quick questions of mine. One, would it be Claire Underwood on a Hillary ticket or Hillary on a Claire Underwood ticket?
I mean, speaking from Claire, I call her Blair Underpants, by the way. That's her new name. I would say Hillary's on her ticket.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm with her.
Insert applause. Okay, second question. These are they're really hard hitting, so prepare yourself. As Robin, who would you rather marry? Jenny from Forrest Gump, or Claire Underwood, or me?
Wow. Wow, this is no labeling going on right now, right? Just kind of blurred. Can I have all three?
Oh, yeah. Let the record reflect that Robin Wright just proposed to me. And on that note, do we have any questions from the audience? Oh my God, everybody's, okay. Yes, please.
I have a question about the ongoing efforts with the Belgian government. Since there's so many refugees from the Congo that now live in Belgium, and they have second generation, third generation Congolese people, more people in entertainment now. How is that voice growing to help back home? And is there any kind of, I know a mining company from Belgium 2 years ago was lied about bulldozing homes in the Congo. So I was just wondering, what is the status of the Belgian people's responsibility to helping aid on something that is torn apart?
Very, very quickly, just to recap, in case that wasn't picked up on the microphone, the question is, what's the status of the relationship between Belgium and the Congo? And as it stands right now, what is Belgium doing to take responsibility? I hope that sums it up accurately.
I remember watching the movie Lumumba, and I remember at the end of the movie there was something going on in Belgium, and they were selling at the bakery chocolate-covered hands, right? It was like some type of treat of some sort. And when I saw it, I made me remember how in the early 1900s the Belgians used to cut off the hands of our daughters and sons for not producing enough rubber for companies like Dunlop bicycle tires, and that made their way to the United States. And then I fast forwarded to when we got our independence in 1960, and we had only one college graduate in the entire country because the Belgians pretty much picked up the entire apparatus and left. And then I fast forward to today, and quite honestly, there are relationships between Belgium and Congo, and Belgium and Congolese people is not as bad, but it's not really strong. And quite honestly, in this movement, in this work that we've been doing, there hasn't been a great deal of strong support from those within the Belgian community. I mean, Belgian citizens, of course, they want change and they see themselves as global citizens. But when we're talking historically and we're talking about, government level type things, we still see part of what Belgium is doing as part of the problem as opposed to being part of the solution. And again, that leads to accountability as well on members within our own Congolese government who aren't representing the best interests of the people as well. So you know, we've come a long way, but quite honestly, a lot of what was going on with Congolese in Belgium is taking place across the entire European continent as it relates to the presence of Africans and this idea of a xenophobia that's taking place. And so even some of us over there are caught up in that climate as well, so it's not as productive as we'd like it to be.
Yeah, Chris.
You know, it seems like nowadays one or two editors will decide to research one of these sort of crises, these international topics, and write an article about it, and then, you know, for the next week, every other website will write an article about it as well. And I think over the last 2 and 3 years, we've sort of seen like this trend of people sharing this information, you know, out of rage. And I'm just wondering if you can speak to any thoughts or ideas that you have as to how we can turn that sort of rage into action.
Just very quickly, in case, again, the mic didn't pick that up, the question is, there seems to be a cycle of publications picking up on various conflicts, outrage-producing stories around the world, and they stay in the news cycle for a short period of time, for a week, a few weeks, and then they seem to drop off the map. And what can the media be doing differently? What can we be doing differently to actually transform that, turn that into action?
Let's share the honest narrative of Congo, whether it's from some of the most impressive fashion on earth to music, to vibrant civil society, growth and movements, people doing some amazing leadership on the ground. That's the truth of Congo today. Let's get past the world's deadliest conflict, the rape capital of the world, the worst place to be a woman. These are facts, but that should be embedded into a new narrative and a new story of Congo. And let's make sure to point out when we're covering Congo the good stories. This is one rare, consistent area for bipartisan support in Congress, the U.S. Congress. Dodd-Frank, another rare instance of U.S. leadership purely on humanitarian grounds to great cost to U.S. business and business influence. That's the United States I want to be a part of, and that's the truth. Obama has called President Kabila, President Kagame in Rwanda, forcefully asking them to knock it off. He's appointed a senior-level U.S. envoy, first Russ Feingold, now Tom Perriello, whose full-time job it is to end the Congo conflict. We've seen the world's major companies investing millions of dollars in tracing their supply chain, again, purely on humanitarian grounds. So I have a warped sense of reality because the folks I meet from Hollywood to politics to private sector are doing the right thing, and they're doing the right thing because there's human suffering. And they want to leverage their platform, whether it's Apple or Intel, whether it's the United States government, whether it's House of Cards or Upstanders International, to bring the populace forward, to share that new narrative. So talk about the new stakeholders, talk about who's all engaging, and that's recent history. Everything that I've mentioned has happened in the last 5 years. And so Congo, inside Congo, from fashion to music to culture, a good friend of ours, Fidel Bafilemba, is going to open the first ever public library in Congo this year in the city of Goma, which has been plagued by some of the worst violence. And so there are new stories to tell. We're ready to jump back to the mic 24/7 and talk about all the amazing stories that we see. But it's that global narrative as well that's changing. And it's U.S. government and U.S. private sector engagement that's changing. This is the story of Congo today. It's a story of change. It's a story of a real and investing progress and policy reform, and that we are nearing a tipping point for the root cause of some of that corruption. This is not static, and the old narrative is no longer enough. You need some of that nuance, and in the nuance is where you get the traction, the momentum, and that's, I think, when we share that story with people, this is where we see people light up. This is where we see students raise their hand and say, bring the film and campaign to my campus. And when you start talking about Tim Cook being personally engaged on this issue, Brian Kersanich, President Obama personally engaged in this issue, John Kerry, Tom Perriello, for Robin Wright gives me a call at the end of a very long, busy day on the set, and she's exhausted, and we're giving a little campaign update, and she says to me, I love the meaning that this brings. I'm so glad to be a part of this. That's the story of Hollywood. That's the story of the individuals who are part of this. When Omekongo, who's starting up businesses and has a professorship at American University, and he's got 3 beautiful young kids and a baby boy at home, he's coming up to New York to meet with you guys today because this is nearing a tipping point. It's worth our time, it's worth our travel, it's worth our investment to share that narrative with you so you can turn around and share it with your audiences. Congo is in a new place today, and peace has never been so achievable. And I get excited.
I've literally never seen Mike so shy before. Come on. Oh, yeah. There we go, Joel.
Hi, guys. We're all here. By the way, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure. We're all here because we're creators of media in one form or another. Some of us on one side may be dealing with facts as journalists or documentarians, but also people who create songs, people who create books, people who create maybe movies that are maybe telling the stories of a place like the Congo. I wonder, are there any of those that you think are particularly doing a good job in that space right now? Artists that you think you might want to highlight outside of you guys that you think of as inspirations or fellows who are doing the same kind of work?
Are we talking specifically related to Congo, or are we talking...
Yeah, I'm thinking of specifically kind of who's telling the story of Congo right now that maybe we could, on some level, highlight, step out of the way, and help them tell the story.
There are many artists who are doing all types of work, from dance organizations like Origination Cultural Arts Center in Boston, Massachusetts, to Congolese poets like Leonard Chitenge. Even you have some more mainstream rappers, guys like Nas, who have mentioned the Congo in their lyrics as well. There is definitely a list of people of all walks, painters of all walks of life, and we'd be definitely happy to get you that information about it. But also, it's very important to understand, for me as somebody who creates and does lyrics and makes albums myself, and you guys really need to, I hope that you all appreciate this space that you're in. I'm talking about this building right here, to be able to have the freedom to use those talents to highlight these particular issues. I believe that it's going to be the creatives, like you all in this room, who are going to be so crucial in helping to change that narrative. And we would love to partner you up with Congolese artists who are in Congo, who are in other countries across the globe, who are part of that narrative as well. But even on your own, you can even do that yourself, because again, if we don't use our creative abilities to help change this narrative, then we're going to be going towards that same simple narrative that we've been talking about earlier. So I just want to also say that I appreciate everything that Mike is doing, because your originality is really going to be the key to helping change this story.
You guys are changing the game, and it's by innovators and people changing the game that's going to help solve some of the world's problems that the last generation was just too ignorant and too narrow-minded to identify. You guys are going to be able to do it. Petna Deliko is a guy that I want to share his story today. He's a hip-hop artist. He runs a organization called Yole Africa in Goma, the city I mentioned. And he puts on a music festival every year, a real act of resistance, where youth going through his hip-hop workshops get to sing out songs in front of a crowd of thousands in the public city streets, something that happens way too rare in Congo, and speak about that better future, rap about an end to the corruption. And they get to do it, in broad daylight in front of a crowd of thousands. So Petna Deliko is one of the heroes of Congo, doing this work every year at great risk to his own safety. Ben Affleck is another person in the creative space that we want to give our respect to. He started the Eastern Congo Initiative, has brought tremendous amount of attention, in particular to the U.S. Congress. He's done a lot of work with John McCain and his wife Cindy on this space of bringing bipartisan support. Through his platform, he's spearheaded fair trade, equal exchange coffee cooperatives, where now Congo coffee from the east of the country is in Starbucks. So there's amazing people doing some great work. Ryan Gosling has taken a trip to Congo and cares about this issue and speaks about this issue. It's the creatives, it's the filmmakers, and it's the musicians. But I want to drop the mic to say you got to look up Omekongo's Congo on the Come Up. Google Congo on the Come Up, and so much of his work for the videos. In that video, you'll see some of the amazing influentials. From Green Bay Packer quarterback Aaron Rodgers to Emmanuel Shariki, being in videos with him, speaking about this issue, hoping to leverage their platform, their massive Twitter following, to raise attention on this. So from sports to film to hip-hop artists, the creatives are leading the way.
So go check it out right now. Also check out this powerful film that we've been discussing, When Elephants Fight, about the Democratic Republic of Congo. Get involved with the Stand With Congo campaign, #StandWithCongo. I want to thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Omekongo, JD, Robin, this has been a real pleasure. And come back again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.